everybody, and welcome to today's episode of this Organized Life podcast. I'm your host, Lori Palau. And before we get into today's episode, I just want to remind you that we have a listener survey that's like 2 to 3, not even 2 to 3 minutes, like a minute of your time. We're going to put the link in the show notes. If you can just go in and fill that out, we are planning kind of our 2022 strategy, and it's always great to hear what you guys like, what you don't like, what you want to hear. So if you could just really take a minute of your time and fill that out, we'd be so appreciative. So that's my public service announcement. Now, for today's episode, I'm very excited. Joining me today is my friend, Janelle Azar. And Janelle is a professional organizer. She is in Michigan, for any of those who are looking for professional organizers in Michigan. And she is also one of our SBO partners. So for those of you who are familiar with our partner program, we have a network of professional organizers all over the globe because yes, we are global. And they all have their own areas of expertise. They all run their own businesses, but it's a community where we come together and support each other. And I endorse them. They're all my endorsed local providers. So again, love Janelle, love everything that she does. The name of her company is called A Meaningful Space, and she's going to talk to you all about that. But the reason why I invited her to come on the show today is to talk about travel. Travel is a passion of Janelle's, and with travel opening up and people venturing in on planes and doing car trips and really running the whole gamut, I thought it was time for us to hone in on an episode about travel organization tips, whether it's packing, whether it's planning, the logistics, you name it. So I said, Janelle, come share your wisdom with our people. So that's what she's here to do. So without further ado, please help me welcome my friend Janelle Azar to the show.
Thank you, Lori. What a great introduction.
Well, thank you. It's always fun when I have one of our SBO partners on the show, because obviously I love you guys and I love hanging out with you, but you also have such great wisdom to share. And that's what I love about our group. It's people have their own strengths, their own styles, and their own passions within the realm of organizing. And I know that travel's one for you. Go ahead.
Oh, no, absolutely. I love to travel. We'll get into that, I'm sure.
Yeah. So tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So outside of kind of the synopsis you gave, I guess I'm always passionate about saying that I was born and raised in Ohio. So I am from the state of Ohio. I grew up there. I went to school there. I'm raised an Ohio State Buckeye. So I'm a Ohio State Buckeye living in a Michigan world in a house divided. We're big college football fans here. But my husband and I live here in Michigan, and we have been here. We've been married about 15 years. We actually met at in my previous career as a retail manager. And so I always joke around that, I didn't only get a career, I also got a husband. So they kind of went hand in hand. I spent 20 years in the retail industry. And I think that probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I realized that I just didn't feel like I was in the right space. I didn't feel like I was doing something that I was truly passionate about anymore. And that's kind of when I discovered professional organizing. It's something that I've always loved to do. I really got a taste for it when I helped my parents pack up our family home after 23 years living there, and got to do that all by myself. And it was such a fun experience. I loved it so much, didn't really give it a second thought until about 4 or 5 years ago that it could be a thing, it could be a career. And so I founded my company in 2018 and went full-time in 2020. And I haven't looked back since. It's been a great experience, and I've loved every minute, expanding further into residential organizing and closet design and speaking engagements. It's been such a great experience.
Well, that's awesome. And I have to just pause for a second, because you said one thing that I absolutely love, and I just want to come back to it because I think it's just an important thing. And I don't even know if you realize you said it, but when you were talking about moving your parents after 23 years, which can just be overwhelming for anybody. I don't even care if you do this as a profession. That's a lot of stuff. Is you said I got to do it, not I had to do it. And just that little subtle thing, I talk about that a lot, just in terms of like people's mindset when it comes to decluttering and organizing, is I always say, just reframing that into like, I had the opportunity to do this versus I had to do it makes all the difference. And for those of you who are watching us on YouTube, like Janelle saying this with a smile on her face. And so I just wanted to kind of come back to that and just say like that it was really an opportunity for you to help them with this, what could have been a really overwhelming task.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I didn't even think about it that way. And I feel like as I helped friends and family organize and go through different transitions in their life, that was what I really got like the most excitement from, was being able to help them and provide them with something that, you know, helped ease that stress or that anxiety that they were going through. And I probably didn't even realize it at the time, but now that I'm doing it on a frequent basis, on a regular basis, it's really truly part of why I love it so much.
I love that. Let's talk a little bit about the travel. So when did your love of travel come into play? Because when we were brainstorming about different topics, I knew I wanted to have you on the show. And we were kind of talking. And again, like you were like, I love travel. Like that was your thing. So how did that all come about? Tell us your travel story.
My travel story. So I think it really came about when I was a little girl. My mom would talk a lot about her traveling around the world and going to Europe. And I always thought, oh, that's so glamorous and so exciting. And I want to do that someday. And while we never did that while I was a kid, what we did do was every weekend we traveled to our summer home that we had on Lake Erie. And for the first probably 10 to 12 years of my life, it was actually a boat. So we would stay every weekend on a boat. And I think that's where I really gained the love for, you know, going somewhere and having like an adventure. And, you know, as a kid, it was very exciting. You met new people and had new friends and did different things. And being on a boat, I think that's kind of coincides with why I pack on the lighter side when I travel, because there's not a lot of space on a boat. Like you're packing your essentials and the things that you're going to use, and that's it. So I think that's really, really where my love of travel came from.
I love that. I'm like, oh my God, that seems like such a fun thing. Like we're going out for a weekend on the boat. I don't know. That just seems like a fun thing to do. So you've created kind of this, well, you have a lot of content, but we've condensed it really to just kind of streamline this for people, because into a top 5 list, really, if you will, you know, in terms of planning and packing. Because when I was looking at, we were kind of talking about it offline, I almost looked at it as 2 phases, like the prep work leading into it, and then the actual like logistics of getting going. And we didn't even talk about like coming back and unpacking and all that we could save that for another episode.
Right.
But again, travel is, a lot of people are planning after being, you know, told that we can and forbidden to travel for 18 plus months. So many of us are itching to get on a plane or to a boat or do something to get out of our own, you know, 4 walls. And so the research part, I think, is really fun for a lot of people right now, because it's just, we've been cooped up. So let's talk a little bit about your first step, which is about researching.
Yeah, researching. And this really, I have to mention, this is coinciding perfectly for me and for kind of you, because you just got back from a recent trip. I'm leaving next week on a trip. So this is a great time to really hone in on the things that I love when it comes to traveling and packing.
Yeah, for sure. Wait, where are you going? Where are you going?
I'm heading off to the Caribbean, to a little island called St. Martin.
So fun. So fun.
Yes. So this is perfect timing for me to really get my packing skills in order.
All right.
So let's talk about the destination and researching, right? So for me, it's always really important to take note of the things that are going to involve any kind of transportation. So if you're flying, if you're driving, whatever that may be, and any kind of, especially nowadays, any restrictions that may be in place as you're going different locations. That's huge. And you have to plan ahead for that. Absolutely. You have to make sure you're researching those restrictions, and you have to have those things set up in place. So I would say that would be one of the first most important steps. And when it comes to thinking about the destination, I think that kind of goes hand in hand with the packing side of things. Like, you have to think about the climate. For me, I'm checking my weather report 7 to 10 days out, and then kind of a little bit further in as we get closer to the day that we're leaving. I'm thinking about, what am I going to do? What does my itinerary look like? What are the activities that I'm going to be participating in? What about, like, am I doing an event? Am I going to be going for a wedding or like a celebration of some kind? That's always something that you have to consider and pack appropriately for. And let's see what else, anything that you might need in advance. Like, if you're going maybe hiking, or if you haven't been to the beach in a while and you need to like go through that process of getting those things in order, it's important to make sure you're prepared ahead of time. I'm thinking that's really.
Yeah. And just to kind of piggyback on that, because I was just thinking, you're right. Like, I just came back from a girls' weekend in Key West, which was so much fun. It was great to get away. And for me, obviously, it was domestic travel, so I didn't have to worry about passports. But again, if you are going to be traveling overseas, you want to make sure that you have your passport. They extended there was all these signs at the airport, though, about people planning, to make sure they extended the deadline for the real ID. But people just need to be thinking ahead about making sure that you have all of your documentation, so that's current. But then I had this panic of like, do I need to have a COVID test? Do I have to do anything? And fortunately, like, I didn't have to worry about that, because I know that that's an added layer. But for people, depending on where you're going, that's something that you might want to consider. And so knowing, like you said, especially nowadays, what you need to have in place so that you're not scrambling in the 11th hour. And it's funny, because I think a lot of times with the research, when we will research the fun things, like, I know for me, this was a big one for me, like dinner reservations, because we know there's this like national shortage of people in the food service industry and restaurants. Not everybody is at 100% capacity, and there's all of these different changes. I used to be able to walk into a restaurant, even when we would go on our annual vacation to the Outer Banks. Like, we never needed reservations before COVID. And now every place is booked. So think about, if you're going to be going and you're going to be planning those types of things, maybe it would probably be beneficial for you to try to make some of those plans in advance, or excursions or things like that, if you're going to be doing that. But the other thing is, like, a lot of times you're an Enneagram 1, you're a planner, you're a list maker. Not everybody is. And a lot of people are the fly by the seat of their pants. And so when we get into kind of the next step, which is like what you have, start packing early, I immediately was like, oh my gosh, do you know how many eye rolls we're going to get with this one? Because most people are like the day before throwing a bunch of stuff in a suitcase. So talk about, you actually, in your prep work, sent over some statistics. So you want to talk a little bit about the benefits to early packing?
I did. And I know that you're like a statistic like junkie.
I am. I'm a data nerd.
And I love it too. I think it's super informative. And I did find a survey from Nordstrom's, their trunk club did a survey about people who are traveling, and 62% of people say that they overpack. And I think that's a direct correlation to the same amount of people. They surveyed, I think, 2,000 people, and a third of those people said that they pack the night before. And honestly, those two things are so closely related. I think they just kind of piggyback off of one another. And I thought it was also interesting, 3 out of 5 people need to purchase something because they didn't bring it with them to wear.
Can I add on to something, like real life story about my Key West trip? So I went with my 2 college roommates, and we live like logistically all over. So, we came from different places. We didn't travel together. We just met down there. And we went for a few days, and I packed light. I packed just like a carry-on bag. I didn't care if I was wearing the same clothes again, not to mention we were staying at one of my girlfriend's houses, and she has a washer dryer. So I don't care about these things. both of my friends came with luggage for like 4 days. I was like, what are you guys doing? I was totally making fun of them the whole time. And one of them had to go buy something when she was down there. And I was like, you packed for like a month. How do you have to buy something? And it was like, she's like, I didn't know, because she didn't really plan. And she had this fear of like, this fear that I think a lot of people have is, what if I run out? What if I don't have? And so they pack all this, like, she's like, I packed like 4 sweatshirts. Like, why do you need 4 sweatshirts? You need one,
Right.
You can wear the same thing again. You don't need a new pair of pajamas for every night. Wear it again,
Right.
So, but it was so interesting because it really spoke to that when you said that statistic about people having to buy stuff. I was like, that was Amy. She had to buy something.
You know what I also found interesting is that people said they found packing more stressful than traveling.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I believe that. Not for myself personally,
right.
but I could see how people, because you know why? I mean, we can dissect this for a minute. I think it has to do with decision fatigue. Like, people are not, and it seems very permanent. Like, if I'm making this decision, I can't just go back into my closet if I don't feel like wearing that.
Right.
This is what,
right.
So they want to have options down there. So it actually makes it more stressful as opposed to looking at it from the perspective of, I'm just going to bring these 5 or 6 interchangeable things or whatever and make the best of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see it with my clients all the time when they're coming back from a trip or packing for a trip. Some of them take 3 or 4 suitcases with them, and that's just a lot. And I think you're right. It does come down to making those choices ahead of time, and it's just too much. It's too overwhelming.
So how early, because you said how early, do you have like a rule of thumb of when you should start packing for your trip? Or I'm sure it would vary a bit.
Yeah, I think rule of thumb for me is a week, like a week out. Like, you should really be thinking about, what you're going to take with you. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to actually be packing things into your suitcase, but it could be, maybe you're starting to look at the outfits that you need to take. Some of the things that you're definitely going to need on your trip. Maybe it's about doing some laundry, like the things that you do want to take with you, getting those things ready to go. I think that it also coincides with your research. If you're going to a certain climate, whether it be, if you're going skiing or you're going to the beach, those certain things require certain types of clothing. So having those things kind of ready to go, it can be a little bit at a time. It doesn't necessarily have to mean, oh, this is all going in my suitcase 1 week prior.
Right. And also, if you're going somewhere that is a different climate, like if you don't need the stuff that you're going to be using, I think it's easier. Like, if you were saying it's winter and I'm going on a vacation over Christmas break to an island, well, you're not wearing your shorts and t-shirts right now. So aside from your toiletries and your undergarments, you could probably pull a lot of the outfits in advance because it's not stuff that's in your current rotation. So I think there's going to be some variables, but again, it's not like you're planning months and you're not pulling the stuff months in advance. So again, these aren't hard and fast rules. I never tell people this is what you have to do. There's one way to do it, but I like the fact of kind of giving that like 1 week buffer to say, this is when we really need to start being kind of strategic. And that'll also, if you give yourself a little bit of that leeway, if there is something that you realize, oh, I don't have a bathing suit, or I don't have a fill in the blank, I need an extra ski, whatever, it gives you time to go out and get it, as opposed to realizing the day before, oh, I don't have that.
Exactly. And that's so true. And again, that's where it comes into you're buying something on vacation when you go away that you have at home but didn't necessarily pack. I think that the other thing that's really helpful, or something to think about when you're packing early, is a lot of times people don't travel alone. They travel with other family members or other people in their household, and those people might need help themselves packing and getting ready for wherever you're going. So if you can help prepare yourself and be ready on your end, then you have a little bit of time available to help others too.
And that brings up a really good point, which we it wasn't necessarily something that we had planned to talk about, but as a parent, I think the earlier that you can get your kids involved in owning what they're bringing, selecting it, pulling stuff out, just like anything is important now. That's not to say that, as you know, if you have young kids, that you shouldn't go in there and double check, because I've been down the road where, you know, Logan has packed no underwear and, you know, 6, you know, princess dresses or whatever it was when she was younger. So obviously you need to check these things. But I also used to, for my kids, I would just write out like a checklist of X amount, you know, you need X amount of underwear, you need this amount of shorts, so that I didn't have to necessarily physically do it. I would just give that to them. So they had this guideline. If I said, bring 4 pairs of shorts, they could pick the shorts that they wanted, but I didn't have to go in there and do it. And then it relieved my time, and I could just go in there and check it and make tweaks as necessary. So I think that's another little tip for parents to free themselves up.
Absolutely. I think that is definitely a great suggestion. And I can kind of relate. My sister and brother-in-law went to Disney, they went to Mexico actually a couple months ago. And my brother-in-law had packed the suitcases for the kids. And my sister-in-law went in and was like, none of this is going.
Oh my gosh.
So that's always good to kind of give yourself a little bit of buffer of time, just to make sure that what your kids are packing or your husband's packing, just to kind of give it a once over, make sure everybody's got everything they need.
Exactly. I love it. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to continue on with our list. So stay tuned. If you're a professional organizer or have thought about becoming a professional organizer, but not sure where to start, you might want to check out our SBO Partner program. It's a community of professional organizers from all over the globe who are running their own independent companies, but looking for community and some business strategies on how to grow and scale their business. To learn more, visit simplybeorganized.com and click on the Work With Me tab. Okay, Janelle. So step 3, you call that consider the essentials. So can you just walk us through, what does that really entail within that category?
For essentials, for travel essentials, for me in that category, those are things that you're certain they're going to go with you. That's not a doubt. And the first thing that I like to really take a look at in the essentials category is I have a designated toiletry bag, like a travel bag, that's got all of my essentials that I take with me every single time. And it's something that is in my linen closet, in my travel bin, and I replenish it when I get home. So it's always ready to go. And that can immediately go in my suitcase. I don't have to think about all the things that I might need. They're already set and ready to go. So if you have something set up where you're going to have, you know, certain things that you're always going to take with you, it's always great to have, you know, something ready to go.
I have one too. I have.
Oh, do you?
Sorry, I do. And it's great. And just to like really get granular with everybody. So I have this travel bag, and I've had it for years, and it's awesome. And it's got different compartments, and I keep an extra I keep a toothbrush, I keep a travel toothpaste, because I keep travel sizes of everything. Just that way I don't ever have to worry about it. And if we are going somewhere that it's car and I want to bring a full size, I can, but this travel bag always has like the under 3 ounces for airline travel. So I have travel toothpaste, I've got travel size shampoo, conditioner, body lotion, I've got an extra razor, I've got hair ties, Q-tips. What are some other, like a face wash? So, you know, all of those, like you said, essentials that we need. That way you're not scrambling. And then I can always add in. And then when I travel, I'll throw in the last minute. Oh, I keep an extra deodorant in there. Then I will add in my makeup, my hair stuff that I use on the daily, but I have this kind of kit, if you will, ready to go. And I think it's super helpful, even if you don't travel a ton, because most of that stuff is, you know, it's not going to go bad unless you don't use it for like years and years and years. So it's good to just have it that you can throw in.
Exactly. I 100% agree. I definitely love having that ready to go. It makes life so much easier. So on top of that, I also make sure that I have my travel documents, anything that pertains to where I'm going, where I'm staying, how I'm getting there, any emails that I can access readily, any kind of, my passport, my driver's license, any money that I'm taking with me. Those are all things that I want to make sure I've got set aside and are all together.
Nowadays,
And
you have to have you want to make sure you have your vaccination card, or if you're vaccinated, and or just have a copy of it on your phone, just a picture of it on your phone. So you just have it on your person with you in case you need that
absolutely,
unexpectedly.
absolutely. I would say the other thing that I'm making sure that I pack is any kind of clothes, like certain clothes that we kind of talked about. Like if I'm going to a wedding, I obviously have a specific outfit that I will be wearing for that I won't be wearing prior to the wedding,
Mhm.
probably. Any kind of gear for an excursion or activity, if I'm going hiking or swimming, those things I generally won't be using prior to, and I can get those packed right away before, within that 1 week window prior to leaving. And then medication. I think that's something I've done that
I was going to
before.
say it's so important, because sometimes we get so caught up in thinking about the destination and all
Mhm.
that we forget something that is like could be vital to our health.
Yeah, and actually, it was in Key West. We went to Key West, and I forgot my medication. Thankfully, we were in a place where I could easily order something, but I haven't forgotten it ever since. So I always tell people, make sure that's on your checklist, on your to-do list, to get those things set aside and get them put in a safe place.
No, absolutely. It's so great. And I, for people with, in terms of the documents, you can either, there's several different ways that you can have it. You can either have it, if you're like a pen and paper person, you could print them out and have them in a folder or a binder or a notebook with your stuff. Or if you're a digital person, I just create, because I'm a big Evernote person. So I just have, like, I create a note in Evernote for wherever I'm going, for whatever that trip is. And I'll have any dinner reservations that, or any places, anything that we have planned, I will put it there. I'll also include where we're staying, what our flight is. So, and again, a lot of that is just cutting and pasting an email or forwarding an email. I'm not recreating everything, but it's just so that I have one place to go if I need to retrieve anything, as opposed to scrambling through my inbox or trying to rifle through where things are. I've just kind of corralled it. So especially if you're going somewhere that you're going to be maybe going from activity to activity, as opposed to just like a one-stop destination, it's really nice to just be able to have one hub where you can access your information. And I think that, again, to me, falls under those essentials that can oftentimes be overlooked, but just having that is really, it just makes things so much smoother.
I think that's a really great point, and I'm glad you brought that up. I generally do a trip itinerary for that exact reason, and I find it super helpful for all the points that you mentioned. And also, if I'm traveling internationally or out of the country where I'm not sure how my service is going to be, or if I'm going to be able to access things that are potentially online or in my email right away, I love having like either a printout or something that's in my hand that has all of that information.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's stuff that you can, if you have somebody back home that you want to forward it to, so people know, like there's so many different ways that you can do it. But again, there's not one right way to do it. I think the goal is just to have it as simplified as possible for you so that you can actually enjoy the time that you have and not have to worry about remembering, where you were going or what time something was or what you were doing on what day, because we kind of lose track of like what day things are when you're on vacation, which is the
Right.
whole
Even,
point.
even if the itinerary says like do nothing day or like nothing planned, like
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
it's okay.
It's funny. I was just working on our itinerary for our upcoming partner retreat. And so it was fun. And I was writing it out and it was awesome so that everybody could have it. And again, sending it via email to everybody, but they can print it out or they can just save it to their computer or whatever it is and just have it. So I love it. Okay, let's get into some of the logistics of actually packing the suitcase, like the nitty gritty stuff, which again, some people really find very stressful. So give us your wisdom.
So my best tips for packing, there's a lot of them, but one of the things that I always resort to is, first of all, obviously I'm deciding prior to like the type of outfits, and I like to try things on, see how they work out, but I am always looking for things that are versatile so I can wear them in different ways, things that are comfortable, and things that can pack easily, things that are not going to get really wrinkled, things that travel well, things that compare in several different ways. So I don't have to pack a ton of things and feel like I'm missing something still. So part of putting it into the suitcase is I'm a roller versus a folder. I like to roll.
Are you a roller or are you a folder? That's a lot. It's like Sophie's Choice.
Right. So rolling for me, it makes the most sense. It really gives you a lot of extra space. I feel like when you're rolling things and you're able to kind of tuck things into like little corners. And honestly, when you take things out, they're not any more wrinkled or look any worse for wear compared to something that's folded. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah. And again, I've done both. I have absolutely done both. And I think, again, part of the key is you want to maximize your space. You
Absolutely.
really want to maximize your space, and whatever's going, depending on where you're going, what you're bringing, I think that's really what you want to consider.
Yeah. And I think that when you're able to do that roll versus fold, you can use every inch of space. You can be very efficient. I put things in shoes. So I'll stuff them in, and like every nook and cranny of a shoe, I will make sure I stick in like socks or underwear or bathing suit and really tuck that in. And I think when it also comes to shoes, I like to use bags, like little like tote bags or dust cover bags to enclose my shoes. This way it keeps them clean, or it keeps my clothes clean, and my shoes aren't touching my clothes. And it also keeps my shoes together in my suitcase.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. I like that, because you want to try to not have like the soles of your shoes touching up against your clothes if you can. And do you have totally just lost my train of thought. I was going to say, like, in terms of rule of thumb of the volume that you should bring in terms of shoes I guess it's going to depend on how long you're going away, but I didn't know if there was anything. Sometimes I think our listeners like to have like a framework, a guideline.
Yeah, for me, and again, I'm a simple kind of girl, so I don't need a lot of changes. I think I can relate to you when you said I can wear the same type of pajamas 2 days and 3 days. It doesn't matter. And I'm in the same boat with you. For me, shoes, I can easily get by with 2 to 3 pairs of shoes for a week's vacation. Again, it depends on where you're going or if you have a special event, but that's kind of my rule of thumb. Find something that's going to be versatile, that can go from like a casual look to a dressy look, something that you're going to be comfortable in. I don't wear heels, so you won't find me ever vacationing in them unless it's a special occasion.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
No, I love it. And, again, if you're somebody that really likes, if you're like a shoe person and I'm not, but if that's something that's really important to you, by all means, take them. We want you to be happy. You're going away. We want you to be yourself. I don't want somebody to feel that you have to be limited. But again, we want to try to, the less we bring, the less time we have to spend packing and unpacking and making all of these decisions. So if we can choose things that are interchangeable, that really cuts down on so much time. So I think that's really the key. I brought a dress with me to Key West when you were talking about like, how does it pack? I have this dress that my best friend, Michelle, owns a clothing store. And so anything that I have that's nice, I get from her. And this comfy little like sheath dress. And it's got like, I don't forget the material, like what it's called. I'm so bad, but it doesn't wrinkle. And so you could crunch it up in a ball. You could roll it. You could do, it looks great. And you can dress it up if you wanted to and wear it with fancy shoes or strappy sandals, or I wear it with like Chuck Taylors, or you can wear it with flip-flops. Like it completely runs the gamut. And I love the versatility. So that's like one of my, always my staple dresses. And you might see me in pictures multiple times wearing that dress. But again, I don't care, because I would rather just say, this is a great travel dress. And I like to have it. So
Absolutely. And it's really easy to accessorize something to dress it down or dress it up.
yeah.
And honestly, that's what you want to go for if you're trying to travel on the lighter side. I love it.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so let's move into step 5, which is those must-have items that you say in your carry-on or your personal tote. So obviously, we're gonna suggest people, anytime you don't have to check a bag, if you are doing air travel and you can pack later, you're going to. But even if you are going somewhere for a longer stay and you find that you have to check a bag, there are going to be certain things that you recommend always having kind of on your person, so that God forbid your luggage gets lost or something happens, you're not without. So what are some of those things that you're going to want to have with you?
So I think some of the things that we talked about as part of the essentials are really going to go in your personal item or your carry-on if you're, traveling, if you're flying somewhere. So things like your medication or your travel documents, those will always stay with you. Anything that's valuable, obviously, make sure that stays close to you. A change of clothes. And when I say this, again, it's a lot of times I travel from places that are cold to warm or warm to cold. So it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to have an entire change of clothes. But for me, if I need to pack like a pair of pants, if I'm coming from somewhere warm, to change out of shorts, or like, some undergarments just in case luggage gets lost, or like a change of maybe even like shoes or socks, I try to include those in my carry-on as well.
A sweatshirt, like a
Yeah,
sweatshirt or sweater or something like that.
Yeah. And I think too, one of the things that I love as a packing tip as well is layering up if you're going to the airport. So like whatever you can kind of throw on, like whether it be like a blanket scarf or a hat or like any kind of accessories, like a little lightweight jacket. That's also kind of great as you're coinciding with trying to keep what you're carrying light in your bag, and also, making sure that you're bringing the things that you want with you. Essential travel care, like when I say that, I'm talking about like your toothbrush, your toothpaste, if you have contacts or glasses, making sure those things are in your carry-on as well. Because if, again, God forbid you get stopped somewhere, those are the things that you'll definitely want to have. So if you have some things in that category, make sure they're with you. And then for me, I have to have earbuds or headphones.
I was just going to say, and I think most people really prioritize their electronics, but I would absolutely add, if you weren't going to say electronics, and any cords or charging devices, because you never know if you're, again, going to get, especially if it's air travel, if something's going to get delayed, if you're going to get stranded, you want to make sure that you have phone chargers, computer chargers, all of that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would add on to that too. Like a lot of people bring like reading material. So if you're bringing, a laptop or a e-reader of some kind versus like the actual physical reading material, it's always a lot lighter. I mean, I'm a book person. I like having a book in my hand. So you'll probably find me traveling with a physical book and an e-reader, but that's just my personal preference. I think the other thing that's important to mention is some sort of like little snack, or even like a refillable water bottle. Those are great to kind of have on hand, because sometimes you just, you need to refuel.
No, I think that's a great idea. And you know what? It's funny because I did not bring a reusable water bottle. And one of my girlfriends did. And it was just great because I bought like a case of water to just have at the house, and we were doing it, but it would have been so much better and obviously more eco-friendly, especially since we were staying at a house, to just refill her Hydro Flask or Yeti or whatever you have. And I didn't think to bring one, which I was like, really, Lori, like you're off your game. So I'd love that, to have that empty travel, beverage holder.
Yeah, definitely. I think too, on top of all of those things, something that we need to think about, especially in today's new normal, is a clean kit, is having things that are, like hand sanitizer, wipes or masks. And sometimes when you're going to a destination, it does require, obviously airports and airlines do require, masks nowadays. And some destinations, when you get there, you're still required to wear a mask when you're there. So keeping those things in your carry-on, super helpful, super important.
Love it. I love it. Before we take our last break, you actually have a free travel checklist that you created. It's on your website. Can you let everybody know where they can go to find it and learn more about you if they're interested? Go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I created a travel checklist, and it's something I use myself. It's great for anybody who, especially if you're it doesn't matter if you're traveling into a destination once or multiple times, but I do like using it if I'm going back somewhere, because I can reference back, like, how much did I take? Like, did I take 5 tops and only wear 4? So I can kind of limit and see, what I wore, what I didn't wear, and then also a place to kind of put some notes in, like maybe something that's specific to where you're going. Like if I'm going to the beach, I need to bring like maybe sand socks, or like something specific for when I'm out on the beach. But it's all inclusive list. You can find it over on my website. My website is www.ameaningfulspace.com, and it'll be right on the homepage.
Awesome. And again, we will link to it in our show notes, so you can just go ahead in there and click and take you right to it. So that's awesome. All right. So we're going to take one more quick break, and then we're going to come back and do our wrap-up questions. So sit tight. All right, Janelle, thank you so much for sharing this. This has been really, really helpful. And again, especially now, if people are listening to this in real time, it's, people are going to start traveling for the holidays, and, again, just trying to get on maybe some much needed vacations and all the things, or work travel, as things are starting to kind of open back up. So I definitely think there's so much valuable content, and I really encourage everybody to check out your travel checklist. I know I am going to download it myself. All right. So as you know, we always ask our guests several questions, because you have been filling us with tons of inspiration. What book has inspired you that is maybe your go-to, or something that you recommend to other people? And it could be funny or light, or, business related, whatever it is.
One of the books that really, it spoke to me about my life when I was in that transition of trying to, decide what I wanted to do, if I wanted to stay in my long-term career or move forward. And I still find it helpful today. It's called Don't Keep Your Day Job by Kathy Heller.
Ooh.
And I love this book. Even now that I've not kept my day job, I find that it's got a lot of great reminders for people who are entrepreneurs and are in a service kind of based business, to remind you about how you can continue to build on your passion and to really enjoy the work that you're doing, and kind of get back to the why sometimes. Because I think sometimes when we're in our business, we tend to forget about why we started in the first place. And I love it. It's got so much great information. It's got some of my favorite people who provide like some insight or stories. I think Gretchen Rubin's in there, Jen Sincero. They've all got some great insight and expert advice. And for me, coming away from that, there was a quote in there about leading with the human part of you, and really bringing the personable side of yourself to your business. And once you make that connection with people, your work will speak for itself. And I think that still rings true when you're in business. It's all about making those connections.
I love that. And I'm going to go and get that book, because that's what I do like 9 times out of 10 with our guests. They make a book recommendation, and I'm like, I have to check it out. So thanks for sharing that. And then our last 2 wrap-up questions, which are, even though you are a professional organizer, everybody has their dirty little secret of areas where they feel a little bit of a hot mess. So in this particular season of your life, where are you thriving in terms of organization, and where do you feel like you need a little bit of TLC?
Yes. So I think thriving for me, I definitely feel like I've got my wardrobe and my closets and my clothing in order. I majored in fashion merchandising. I worked in retail for 20 years. So I've got down like the file fold, I've got down the color coordination. I've got that all down. No worries there. However, I am a hot mess in my garage, just because I'm constantly in and out of my car going to see clients, and I have product that I'm storing and trying to move in and out, or maybe I have donations that haven't quite gotten off to where they need to go. So yes, I try and keep the garage door closed at this point in my life.
I love it. I love it. See, and everybody and I actually love asking this question specifically to our professional organizer colleagues, because it's so nice for people to say, like, to like actually hear you say like that you are not living in a Pinterest page or an Instagram post or whatever, because we all have our pockets where, life is busy and we're all a work in progress. And again, like you said, even though you know what to do, you can't, it's nearly impossible to keep up 24/7. So I agree.
That's so true. That's so true. And I think it's important when you are a professional organizer and you are working with clients, it's okay to say that. It's okay to, let them know you're human too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So Janelle, again, thank you so much for coming on and talking about this really fun topic, and for sharing your wisdom, and obviously for being part of our community. I appreciate you. I value you. And again, if you're out there and if you are in Michigan and you are looking for an in-person accountability partner, professional organizer, hit Janelle up. We'll have links to her website, Instagram, all the things on our podcast page. So definitely check her out. And if this is your first time tuning in to our show, welcome. We're happy to have you. Make sure you click the subscribe button, or follow button. I think they changed it. So wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us. We're also on YouTube, and we're on social media everywhere at Simply Be Organized. And if you have questions or comments about a topic that you'd like to hear or guests you'd like to see, post it in our Facebook group, This Organized Life Podcast, or shoot us a DM. We want to hear from you. So until next week, I'm Lori Palau. Peace out.